Welcome friends! I've had the pleasure of gaming for over 35 years, spanning dozens of game consoles, and it all began during the later part of the 8-bit microcomputer era, with the ZX Spectrum Plus 2 being my go-to machine. Can you imagine going to your local petrol station to pick up budget cassette games for these computers? Well, that's exactly what I did, and for the princely sum of either $1.99 or $2.99, you could walk away with an all-time classic or a shambolic software atrocity. For most buyers, it all came down to being enticed by the cover art and or the mess of words on the back of the cassette case. With a name and premise as ludicrous as Kung Fu Nights, you'd think it would be a hard sell. An even bigger mystery is that with a cover looking this bad, and a story that could leave you scratching your head until you're scraping brain matter at a subdermal level, is that I actually thought, wow, this looks good, and promptly bought the thing. After a day, I took it back and said it was faulty, attempting to disguise the fact that it was one of the worst pieces of slapped together software I had ever played. This straight to budget title was released in 1988 by Top 10 Software. For the price of $1.99, you could own a cassette full of coded vomit, and this cassette inlay with horrendous hand-drawn artwork and the biggest collection of utter bollocks to ever grace a game's back cover. Let's have a look at this guff together, because it must be seen to be believed. Penned by a crazed lunatic that clearly never played the game, let alone ever managed to stitch together a cogent sentence on paper, we have Kung Fu Nights is a medieval martial arts extravaganza featuring Lord Write-A-Lot and his bean-spilling memoirs. So, Lord Write-A-Lot is as much of a dog food brand-sounding crap pun as he is a medieval martial artist and whistleblower. Makes perfect sense. Well, let's continue. His government wants to stop him, and so he must punch and kick his way to his country retreat. Not an easy task when he is in full armour. This tin can donning pissant has his own government. Oh, what a badass. Finally, we conclude with, he also has a Colt 45 which he shoots from the hip, dodge arrows and alligators in this great arcade game. Well, I think I've been polite long enough by resisting the urge to slash myself to ribbons with the shop receipt, having read this calamitous crap. Now I've played the game, I think it's time to add a few small corrections to this tawdrily written literary psychosis. Firstly, Lord Write-A-Lot will never see his country retreat because you will not complete his journey. After looking at this utterly nonsensical map, you are given exactly 4 lives to traverse this whole sorry game and they'll be gone in seconds. Arrows drop from the sky so quickly that they bury themselves into his caveman-like skull long before he processes there's even a problem, and even if your clairvoyant skills are up to snuff, you'll never jump over any arrows that fly at you from the right hand side of the screen. Seriously, I have never once managed to get this ridiculous and farcical jump cycle working. Once you lose your lives, you are smashed straight back to the control selection screen without a flicker of reason or even the grace of a game over screen. Calling this experience a medieval martial arts extravaganza is the biggest act of willful disinformation ever squirted out by a publisher. Your offensive qualities include making him jerk his neck back and not hearing a satisfying crack in the process, performing uppercuts on his own chin, firing arrows that have random chances of both appearing or functioning, and being able to kneel down and scrape his way forwards while leaving a snail trail of sinew and bone fragments from his knees in his wake. Let's not forget the back cover's mention of the Colt 45 as well. Unless it's referring to the 45th horse in his possession, it's amazing how they managed to utilise a weapon produced 500 years in the future and then managed to adapt it to awkwardly fire mostly ineffectual arrows. Amazing stuff. The collision detection only works when our knobhead knight has an arrow burrowing through his face, or when you barge into an enemy. Good luck with your arrow-flinging, arm-flailing maniac, because playing the game as intended will have you dead 100 times in the time it took for the bloody thing to load in the first place. However, I'm a determined little soul, and after using a cheat poke, I had infinite lives bestowed upon me. Well, we'll see what this country retreat looks like and beat that high score in the process. Hopefully. To get a bigger score, you could skillfully shoot an arrow at an enemy for 10 points, or simply barge your ham-fisted quad-stump jockey into every arrow and enemy in your path for 1,000 points each. So that's what I did, for 12 straight minutes. I slowly shuffled my armoured fool past some truly horrifying scenery the developer clearly didn't expect you to see. After witnessing scenery that includes these sinister face blocks, this pie crust and butterfly and raisin levitating warning sign, and whatever the bloody hell this thing's meant to be, you'll be knocked stone dead by the timer running down to 0 and then thrown right back to the control select screen with a 0.4 femtosecond delay. It was bad enough that I only managed to achieve 38.5% of the high score while I had infinite lives. Worse still was the realisation that the high score was only there to mock you, as the high score screen was another feature absent for this nerve-jangling psychotic mess. Have I got anything nice to say about this otherwise pestilent game? Well, the game has a rather nice looking control selection screen. Ooh, and the general sounds and rendition of Air on a G-string are alright. And the scrolling bit that has nothing to do with the game was nice and smooth. Oh, I give up. What did the gaming press think of this travesty at the time? Bewilderingly, we only have 2 reviews scoring 30% and 40% respectively, coming from magazines that gave out plenty of 1 out of 10 scores in their time, and this fool that thought this absolutely broken, badly coded mess of a game is a little too difficult. Combining the horrendously unfair gameplay with the delirious collection of words on the back cover, this game truly deserves a place as one of my retro gaming abominations. Until next time, goodbye friends.